special guest on. I'm honored to be, as a person that just got their teaching certificate and is just going into teaching, I'm honored to have somebody that's been in education for 31 years. She has a special story and about all of her dealings at education. And she's from Broward County. She's running for the Broward County School District in seat 9. Debbie she'll tell her story and more about her, but I want to introduce everybody here on Conversation with Rob. Debbi Hixon, thanks so much for coming on, Debbie. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
All right, so Debbie, let's talk about this. Can you give the viewers a little bit of background information on yourself, but also why you're going to run for that school board seat in district? It's the 9th seat, rather.
Yeah. So my name is Debbi Hixon. I am a veteran teacher. I've been teaching for 31 years, nationally certified for the last 15 years. I am also a mother of 2 boys that went through the public school system. My son Tom is 27, and my younger son Corey is 24. He's a young adult with special needs. He aged out of the system at 22, and he's now in a adult facility. I'm also the widow of Chris Hixon, who was murdered in the Marjory Stoneman Douglas shooting. So I started at Erie High School when I fresh out of college as a teacher. My dad had passed away when I was in college, and they had a scholarship for people who would teach in low-income areas. And I took that scholarship because I was not sure how I was going to get through college, and thought, well, I started at Erie, I had to do 2 years, and then I would be paid off, and really wanted to be a medical examiner. Believe it or not, that was what I wanted to do. And I just fell in love with teaching. So here I am, 31 years later. I'm now at South Broward High School. I've been a teacher for 27 years. The last 4, I've been the magnet coordinator here at South Broward for marine science and technology. And I just love what I do. So why did I decide to run for the school board seat and not another political position is because I love teaching, I love students, I love the staff, I love education. I know it's the core of everything that happens in our society, and I really feel like this is where I could make a difference. I'm not an expert in anything else, but I feel like I'm an expert in education, and I wanted to bring the skills that I have to the school board. It's a seat that will be open. The person that's in the seat right now is going to run for a different office. So I decided to have a seat at the table to be part of that change. I've been asking for things. I've been engaged with the school board for the last 20 months really heavily because, after everything happened, my voice became stronger. It's not that I didn't have a voice before,
right,
but now I unfortunately have a voice that is louder than it was, and I've been trying my best to use it. I've been in Washington to ask for safer things for schools, for better mental health, responsible firearm ownership through Stand with Parkland. So, I've been an advocate for the last 20 months, where I wanted to be or not. It just kind of, I felt compelled to make a difference. And there's no other place that I think I would be good at that right at this moment than in our school board, where I can impact our own local community in positive ways.
Right. So let's talk about, so obviously a lot of people in the area know you as being a teacher for 31 years and the unfortunate incident that happened last year. So what has the reception been for the campaign so far? And also, is anyone running against you, or is that just kind of like a seat that they nominate so many people and they go by votes, whoever gets the most votes?
Yeah, so I like to look at it as no one's really running against me. It's an open seat, so there are 9 of us running for the same seat. We're not running against anyone, in terms of where it'll be a new person in the position, and I just mind my own business. But there are 8 other people running for the same position that I am, are campaigning for the same position. But it's been very positive, the outreach. I do fight a lot of issues of, Parkland parent scenario. I'm not from Parkland, and I'm not a person who lost a child at that shooting. I'm a widow, and I live in Hollywood. So there's a stigma that comes with that where people think I'm only concerned about safety and I only worry about the Western schools and the higher affluent schools. And that's really a false assumption on people's part. I've worked in the East Side my whole 31-year career, and I'm really concerned about safety and education for students across the county. I'm not just concerned about safety and security in one particular area or education. You know, it's a community, and we have to reach out. The distribution of resources is very unequal in our district, and I know that because I am on the East Side, and the East Side tends to get a lot less resources. So I'm very acutely aware of what's going on there.
Well, I did, how I learned about you, obviously I went to Lynn University, so I am familiar with the area of South Florida and Palm Beach and Broward County, of course, being down there for over 6 years working and doing my undergrad and my master's degree. So I definitely know what you're talking about as in those areas. And I did find out about you through Fred Guttenberg, if that's how, because I know he did endorse you and sent out an email about that. So that's great. And I know he's really keeping up the fight all over the state of Florida and on TV. So just about that. But I want to get more into school issues. So as a person that's, me new coming to, I've worked at other jobs, but now coming into the teaching profession within the next couple of weeks, and I've subbed before and learned about schools. So, schools, and I've been studying this, schools around the country, it seems like the same issues come up. We talk about funding, we talk about low teacher and staff pay, and it doesn't have to be the teachers or the staff that's at the school. We talk about bus drivers, the lunch men and women, people like that. They have low pay, $10 an hour. Can't support a family on that. Big class sizes, and also school safety, which, we've, talked about a little bit so far in the interview. So, how do we, as a person that's been in the community and been in schools for 31 years, how do we solve some of those same issues that we're seeing, not just in the state of Florida, but all around the country? It's the same issues that for a person like me and you, we're going into a school and you really have to be looking around. You have to be vigilant about everything now. And it's insane now. It's really sad that not just the adults, but the students have to worry about their safety as far as that goes. But also the low teacher pay and the big class sizes and stuff. So what is your take on that?
Well, first of all, I think how we solve that is how we vote, right? We need to vote people in that, especially in the state of Florida, that value education. Education as a profession in general has been so devalued over the last 15 years or so. Once that recession hit, we were doing well before that. Teachers were getting good stuff. And you're right, a lot of people worry only about teacher pay, and we forget that there's a whole another set of employees that directly impact students. Christopher was a security monitor, so I'm very also aware of how little they were paid because we struggled. He was getting about a third of what I got as a teacher and working his ass off. So I know that they also need to be valued better. But once the recession hit and we didn't have a lot of money, they started whittling down, right? And then as things got better and more money came into the system, education was working on that little bit that we got them. And the reason that happens is because the people in the buildings love those kids and they use their own resources to get what they need for them. And so we started this whole generation of education fending for itself. Like, we didn't beg the legislators, we didn't push them to value education again. And so we're scraping and scrimping and saving to do what we can, but our country has to come back again and realize that education is the foundation of everything. And our teachers should be, and the people that are the security, the custodians, the cafeteria, people who impact directly the students every day, they need to be paid like rock stars, right? Those are the people that should be valued like that and be role models, because without them, you don't have doctors, you don't have lawyers, you don't have mechanics, you don't have rock stars, you don't have anything, because it is the foundation of every professional career that exists. But we don't value it like that in our country.
Well, and this is just to touch on the last point you just said about how you get doctors and lawyers and stuff like that. Those people that are doctors and lawyers, everybody says, oh, a doctor, wow, oh, a lawyer, wow. That's how we used to think of teachers. We don't we don't act like teachers are respectful. How do you get a good teacher in a school with the kids that are going to Harvard and Yale, or even other schools, University of Florida, and all these other schools that have good grades and really have compassion for others? They're going to go into private equity. They're going to go into all these big money sources. They're not going to go into teaching because they pay the teachers like junk. $36,000 a year. You can't raise a family of that. You can't start a family over that. So I agree with you. That's how it's happened in our country, and especially in this state, is that they don't treat the teachers with any kind of respect or dignity. And then once the kids see that, then the kids aren't going to treat you with respect or dignity either. That's common sense. I mean, I'm sure you see the same stuff where you are.
Every day, and it isn't even just about pay, it's about valuing them. We're just, as a profession, you're just a teacher. No, a teacher is, again, the foundation of anything that you can be. But students are inspired and molded by the teachers that they have. But we don't, as a society, we look at teachers as babysitters. And it may be because there were some bad teachers that maybe did come across that way. But, for someone to come here every day, get paid very little, work really long hours, and then get treated like crap, you have to really love what you do to keep coming up. And that's part of the problem, and it was a question that you told me you were going to ask, so I'll just jump into it. It's why we can recruit teachers if we say we're going to pay them a good salary. The problem is we don't retain them because we don't value them. And how long can you stay in a job where you just feel like crap all the time?
Agreed.
So, part of it is money, but more of it is a respect issue, and the idea that we lift those teachers and staff members in the community of education up and make them feel as if they are what they are, which is role models. Sorry, my bell.
No, you're fine.
And change makers, and their students are looking to them for guidance, and we don't ever treat them like that. So if you're looking at a teacher who just hates their job and is working 2-3 other jobs, like you said, why would anybody ever want to be a teacher? But if you pay them a good chunk of money, they get drawn into it because they're like, oh, this is a good starting salary. But then if you sit at that salary for 5-6 years, and then you come into a building where you just feel like you're not really making a difference because people look at you as a glorified babysitter, why would you keep doing it? Which is what we're seeing across the country. Most people don't stay longer than 5 years in the teaching profession. So, and a lot of times it's because they're coming from industry where they have a certain expectation of how they should be treated and valued because they've been in a business setting, and all of a sudden they become a teacher and they really just get left alone to fend for themselves. And it's just we need to change our country in general, how we look at education, how we fund it, but also how we treat teachers and professionals in the education community in terms of including them in conversations and stuff.
Right. Well, and then we'll move on to the next question. Quick thing of what you said about voting the right politicians and whether you like the person or not. It was nice to see in the last governor's campaign, Andrew Gillum finally brought up that we should have to pay teachers at least $50,000. And even whether you like that or not, at least somebody's bringing it up. And $50,000, if you say this to some of the people around the state of Florida, they act like $50,000 is like 300 grand. I mean, give me a break. But it was nice to finally see somebody bring that up. But let's talk about, we just talked about a little bit about funding. We see a lot of these politicians in Florida, they champion charter schools. They act like charter schools is butter with bread on it. And, nothing against charter schools. There's some good charter schools. But, the taxpayers are paying the money on their tax dollars not to go to charter schools, but go to the schools and the policemen and the firemen in their local areas. And instead, it's getting eaten up and given to charter schools or to other pet projects. As a person that's running for school board in Broward, do you see that same kind of issue with money going to charter schools? And if so, how would you kind of push more of that money to the public schools so the public schools can help build up their education space instead of for-profit charter schools?
Well, the problem with charter schools and how much money goes to them is that that's a state mandate. That's not a county mandate. Yeah. And again, it's who you elect, right? So we have people in our legislature that believe charter schools are the answer to the education issues. But you're right, people, whether you send your kid to private school or charter school, if you pay taxes, you're paying for public education. So you should take advantage of that. And we have to have, especially in Broward, a better reputation for our public schools. And I think part of that is that we don't market ourselves very well. We have to invite the community into our buildings and show them what our students are doing so that they can go back out to the community and say, wow, I was there, and did you know that the kids at South Broward are doing this, or the kids at Northeast High School are doing, in those areas where there's a perception of what's going on in the school, which is not the reality. And if people knew the advantages for free that those kids would be able to take advantage, we have after school things that we do with our students. They're going to all these competitions. Some of them are even international, but we don't market that very well. Although the school board has a huge marketing department that gets paid a lot of money. So I think it's more important that each individual school build that relationship with the community around them so that the people are comfortable sending their kids there. So I don't think it's so much of a funding issue, and I don't know that a lot of money, when you look at the big scheme of things, is necessarily going to the charter schools. But, they don't have to meet the same requirements. And like I work at a high school level, something's clearly going on in elementary and middle where the kids are flocking to charter. But once it comes time for high school, they all flock back to us. So, there's a disconnect there about what's going on. And I think it is more, people need to know what's happening in their local schools, and they need to know that by being invited in and being asked to be a partner, not for their name on the fence or a check they're going to write, but truly being a partner, coming in, reading with the kids, mentoring kids, guest speaking. Like we had a group of women come today from the marine industry just to talk to the kids about what jobs were available, what skills were they looking for, and the kids went up and asked them for their business cards. Now there's a relationship where they're going to continue that in the, they may get an internship, and then people be like, wow, South Broward has these awesome kids. We need to be doing that in all of our schools.
Right. So let's talk about another issue, and we just seen this come out a couple of months back with Governor DeSantis, and he's urging the teacher pay to go up to $47,500. Now, I believe that's great, but then we look at what's going to go on with the teachers' unions are now worried that, where would the money come from? A lot of the older teachers that have been there for years upon years upon years, if they're at that level right now, as you just said, sometimes you're just stagnant at that same level for years upon years with no raise. And then a new teacher comes in, is making the same as you, and you've been there for 31 years and they're in their first year. I mean, that could have, a little bit of a divide there. So what is your opinion on this policy? Because, it could create a divide.
It will, and I mean, it's great that he wants to increase teacher pay for recruitment, but he needs to increase teacher pay across the board
True.
for retention.
Right.
So, and the point is, within, like I mentioned, within those 5 years, people leave, and that's an issue because you're spending all this time and resource to get them in and, get them qualified and then also teach them how to be a teacher, and then they're gone and you have to start that process all over again.
Right.
And they never are able to give back, so you don't get any return on your investment, let's say. So it's great that they want to recruit teachers, but they need to move further from that and figure out how they're going to retain them. So it has to be better. But think about it. Florida is a huge tourist place. We get so much money from taxes. We are not hurting for money in any way, shape, or form. So you need a legislation that is willing to put education at the top of that budget issue and then figure it out. There are things that are getting funding that don't need to have the funding that they're getting, So there's a lot of things that are important, but again, it's the foundation. Education should be looked at as the foundation for everything. So that's where, they're putting millions of dollars in making stadiums or getting Formula One to come to North Miami to do whatever. All of that money, it needs to be more equitable, and education should be getting the bulk of our state money.
Right. No, I agree with you 100% on that. So let's move a little bit to the second part of the interview with what happened in Parkland. I know this is kind of a hard subject to speak on, but do you believe that, this tragedy could have been prevented? And you know more about this than me as you've been dealing with it. I'm just a person that's watched this stuff unfold on the news. So I'm just hearing what the media is saying. You know more about what happened firsthand. I heard on the media that they said that there was FBI issues with or the police rather, that they were informed that this kid had some serious mental issues. The parents were also informed, and they didn't do much about anything. Do you believe that this could have been prevented, and if so, what way?
Yeah, so the DSO visited his house 44 times. He should have been on some kind of watch list. I don't know exactly what they have, but
Sure.
there was a person who called the FBI twice that said that they believed that he was going to shoot up a school and had a lot of details, and that the FBI dropped the ball on that. They've admitted. Sorry, that's the next bell.
Not a problem.
They did admit that they dropped the ball, and they reprimanded people that allowed that to happen. But I also feel like there's a lot of blame to be laid on his mother, who knew there were issues but wanted him for misguided reasons. She probably meant well, but allowed him really to turn into what he turned into because she didn't seem to be able to discipline him. And there's a lot of things. Hindsight's always 20/20, but definitely law enforcement had him in their radar and just never seemed to be able to figure out what they were going to do. So yes,
Right.
I do think that he should have been. Not everybody should walk among us, and our society likes to believe that everybody should have fair chances, and that's true. But there are just some people who don't need to be among the public because they are dangerous, and to give them more power and more rights than the rest of us is really, it's just not right.
No, I watched a lot of interviews with you preparing for this interview, and I know that you did testify in front of the judge, or maybe this wasn't about that, but I did watch you say about the death penalty issue. I know that he's coming up for another trial fairly soon. Is that in December or January or something?
He hasn't been on trial yet, but yeah, the hope is to start the trial for this on January 27th.
January, yeah. And now, what do you think the stance is right now? Obviously, the case hasn't taken place. Are you still for the death penalty as far as that goes?
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. So this leads me basically into the next question with that. And I do agree with you. I know you stated in the interview that we're keeping somebody alive that created horror in a school. We're going to be feeding him. He's getting exercise, and you brought that up in an interview too. And me too. I'm also a Catholic. I know you brought that up too. I do see the Catholic part, but as far as some whack job like this, I do agree with what you had stated in that interview. But to go into the next question, Scott Peterson, a lot of people that I've talked to, like I said, I went to college and lived in that area in Palm Beach County for quite a while, say that he was basically a coward. And me working and subbing in schools, I know a lot of the police people that I've subbed at schools, and I talked to them a lot just, to talk. And they even said, that's our job if something's going down, that's what you risk your life to go in that profession. If you go in there and you get shot and you get killed, then, that's your profession. That's what you get paid for. That's life. But he didn't go in there at all. He stayed outside for quite a long time, and there was a lot of issues with that. He called back the Coral Springs police, and there was all those issues with that. What is your take on what he's done, and also what could have been done differently in that, and what you've heard and talked to a lot of people about with this situation?
Yeah, so he, by the time he was, based on what I've seen, aware, he couldn't have saved anybody on the first floor, but he definitely could have done something in time to save those people on the third floor.
Right.
And for him to tell people, okay, you're nervous and you are a coward in your own way, but to continually radio people and tell them not to enter the building, that was just, it makes me so angry. I was able to watch the video and I know what happened. And Christopher spent 5 minutes trying to get up after he was shot. And if somebody had come in there immediately and gotten him help, maybe he would have survived.
Right.
So for me, for you to tell people, be a coward, that you can't judge people. You don't know what you don't know, right, until you're in that situation. And yes, you should have gone in, but to tell other people not to come in was just unconscionable. I mean, I don't, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe Chris would have died anyway because of the injuries that he sustained, but I watched him for 5 minutes try to stand up, and for him to keep telling people, it was like he was saying, no, don't go in there and help Chris, and that's not okay.
Well, you're very kind to what you said about him, because if I was in your position, I couldn't even come to that. I think that as I said, somebody that's a policeman, you're supposed to go in there, and what you said is disgraceful of what he said. Oh, keeping people back. You got to get people in there and try to save whoever you can. I mean, the guy, I'm sorry, we'll leave it at that. The guy is...
Chris was a trained military police officer,
right.
And he did what police officers should have done. He heard something, and he immediately ran into that building. He didn't hesitate. He didn't worry about what... He just ran in like a bull in a china shop, which is what he did. And those are the people that you hope are your police officers. That's how they're supposed to be trained. But it's something inside people, and there has to be a way for us to know that police officers that we train and put in positions to engage are going to really do that. So somehow training needs to put them in positions, in simulations where you can find out ahead of time, is that a person you want to put on the streets that people are going to expect to protect them? Or do they just not have it in them? Because you really, at the end of the day, you don't know until you're in that position, right? we'd all like to think that any of us would go in there and do as kids, for God's sakes. Of course we're going to go in there and try to save them. But not everybody's wired that way. But we have to figure out who we're putting in those positions and make sure they are wired that way.
Well, Chris was wired that way, and right. Yeah, so he's way more braver than Scott Peterson's got in his pinky toe. But we'll move on to what else is going on. We've seen in the past few years the Florida legislators passed some gun laws. Hasn't really been enough. But we've also seen them try to do stuff in college campuses. In the past few years, they've tried to pass open carry on college campuses. And they didn't get it passed. But my thing is, if they ever get it passed on a college campus, I mean, God knows what the heck's going to happen with that. I mean, talk about school shootings. I mean, you never know. I mean, there's a lot of whack jobs, not just in high schools, but colleges too. And then you get kids living there. That's even crazier. So what do you think about, as far as that? And what I'm worried about, if that does get passed, who says that they won't ever down the road? I mean, we might think it's crazy now, but stuff's happened that we never thought was going to get passed in general. If it ever gets passed in the colleges, what says that it's not going to get passed in the high schools?
Well, again, I'll say the best way to do that is to vote, right? Your vote is your voice, and you have to make sure that we're voting in people who believe in responsible firearm ownership. I don't like to say gun control or things like that, because we do have a Second Amendment, and anyone, whether you own a weapon or not, should want people to be responsible with it. So I find it's just better to say responsible firearm ownership.
Agreed.
Right now in our state, you have to be 21 to own a weapon. So that, I think, happening in high school wouldn't happen. But the idea that a good person with a gun will always stop a bad person with a gun is stupid. And more weapons are not the answer to our problem, because it seems to be people don't engage or try to resolve things anymore. They just pull out their weapons and change people's worlds forever. So I think the best answer to that, it seems silly that I keep saying it, but it's our vote. We have to come out and vote for people who have the same values we do. The problem in the state of Florida is South Florida is very different than North Florida. And the way they look at things, right? So we, even though we're voting with our voice, the people in the north part of Florida have different opinions about that. So then we have to start having conversations about why it is we think everybody should be able to carry a gun, and what that's going to look like for our state in general. Because we don't have an open carry law, but we do have this really crazy law that if you're going fishing, you can openly carry a gun. Yeah. I don't know if you knew that or not. It's the dumbest thing ever. Like, who shoots fish, right? So we don't shoot fish when we go fishing. We use fishing poles. But if you this happens in North Florida a lot. They try to catch people in this. If they have a fishing pole and a tackle box, and they can say, "Oh, well, I'm going fishing," they can't stop them from having an open firearm, because it's a law in the book. So what we also need to do in our legislation is have someone go through all of the gun legislation that we have and figure out what works and what doesn't work and clean that up. But, with Marion Hammer sitting in there writing these crazy things into our law and nobody really paying attention, that's a huge problem.
Well, they just want to keep saying, basically, the politicians is thoughts and prayers, and thoughts and prayers don't do a damn thing for anybody. It's just a lot of words, and people are sick of words, whether it's what happened in Parkland, what happened in Newtown, what happened in the movie theater in Colorado. People are tired of that crap, and they want something done. They don't want, the same old by every politician, whether it's Republican or Democrat, saying thoughts and prayers. Get something done, But that's par for the course. We'll move on to the, I got a couple more questions left, and then I appreciate your time with this. Almond teachers and staff members. I'm in Central Florida right now, and Orange and Osceola, not for almond teachers in schools. And I think Broward isn't, or Palm Beach is against that. You could correct me if I'm wrong on that. What my opinion with this is that, and I think you've said this before, is that teachers get paid to inspire kids, to help kids learn, not to carry weapons and stuff. My worry is that if you start putting more guns in the school, what happens if the teacher has a bad day, or you hire a teacher that's got some kind of mental issues that goes under the radar? They don't like a kid, and they start, they, God forbid, they do something like that. Or what happens if the kid finds out where the gun is and breaks it and gets the gun and shoots up the school? So I mean, these are problems that I don't know where these legislators think of these silly, stupid rules and where they get it. I'm sure you're thinking the same things, but these are the problems that I see with, almond teachers, almond these people. Like somebody like Chris that was in the military, was in the military police, that knows how to operate weapons, that's been trained on that. That's something different. Or a regular cop, that's something different. But you start getting people that, I'm going to take me or you to the shooting range when we've never carried a gun in our lives and say, oh yeah, we're going to protect 20 or 30 kids. I mean, come on, man, that's insanity.
So, teacher, anyone who's responsible for students should never be armed when they are responsible for those students. They just shouldn't. You've mentioned a lot of the things. If we secure our perimeter, then we don't have to worry about what's going on in the inside of the school. So we should focus on securing the perimeter of the school, single point of entry, cameras. There's a variety of things. People talk about metal detectors. I'm not really sure how I feel about that, but we have metal detectors everywhere we go, everywhere else. So I don't know why people say that would make it feel like a prison. You don't say that when you go to the airport or a sporting event. You just go through it because it's part of what it is. I don't know if that would change what's going on or not, but any deterrent that you have is going to make it that less likely for someone to think that this is a soft target, right? And that's the problem. They are soft targets. But to say that more guns in a school are going to make it safer is not true. It's just the things that could go wrong and do go wrong in places where they do allow it. It's just not worth it. On that off chance, I mean, I'm the product of the off chance that you have a school shooter, right? So I understand the need to feel safe in that respect, but I also work in a school and every day, and the idea that every day there could be an issue like that, I can't live with that. That's just not okay. So we have to work more on focusing on securing the perimeter and making the school safe in that respect, so that teaching and learning and inspiration and excitement, it can all happen on the inside and people don't worry about their safety and security.
Right. So my question is, and then we're going to move on to the final questions with about Chris and also your son Thomas and his foundation, what he's done with the foundation and stuff. But the last question as far as guns and stuff is, we see political rhetoric, people talking crazy, and all this stuff. We see video games, we see movies, social media. Parents are working 2 or 3 jobs, or they're just not around, don't have meals with the kids. And then we see a lot of kids that are lonely. They're on social media all the time. They don't talk or go out with friends and stuff like that. And that, I feel like that leads to a lot of mental health issues. I know you spoke about mental health funding and stuff like that. Do you believe with the mental health funding, more counselors in the schools, that could deter a lot of these issues that we're seeing around American society that are maybe getting into kids' heads, giving them these bad thoughts, and maybe it may not defer the whole problem, but it may get rid of 50 or 60%, which would be a huge mark?
Yeah, I think we definitely need more counselors because the counselors we have don't ever really get to counsel. The students are busy doing scheduling and other stuff. But I also think we need to invest in training our teachers about social emotional learning because the teachers are the front lines of anything, right? They need to be able to get to that student because sending them to the counselor might take too long, right? You need a teacher who's able to 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 infuse the social emotional learning within their lessons and be able to pinpoint students that may be at risk. And it's not really part of our teacher training. It's just kind of life lessons. But I think we need to invest in some really good programs that are free through Sandy Hook Promise and Colorado Project. It has a different name now. But there are things that those are the types of professional learning development that we should be doing with our teachers and our cafeteria staff and our secretaries, because those are the people that impact those students daily. So that's, that should be part of that funding as well, not just lay everything on a counselor, but make sure that everyone who's in the school community is able to reach out and be a resource for that student.
Right. So now we're going to end, like I said, with those questions about Chris. So Chris, was a real American hero. He served in the military, and he helped change a lot of kids at that school and kids in general's lives by being a mentor. Even though he wasn't a teacher, he was also a wrestling coach, the athletic director, and a mentor to, girls and boys alike. And he made them strong individuals. Can you speak to the viewers? We just see the stuff, like I said, through the media on TV. You know this stuff firsthand. This is that firsthand account. With your relationship with him and how you knew him to be with, as inspiring with these students and help them grow as young men and women.
Well, he was very strict. He was very black and white, but he had high expectations for everybody, and he would help you get them, but he wasn't shy in telling you you're a dumbass if you did something wrong, but he didn't make you feel belittled by that. The kids wanted to show him that they could be better than that, and it was because he showed them by example, and he would give you, one of the students mentioned this and the SB thing. I thought it was a great way to explain Chris. So Chris, if you needed a shirt or let's say you lost your shirt, he would give you his shirt because you needed it, but he would tell you what a dumbass you were for losing your shirt in the first place. And that's just kind of how he was. He was real, but approachable always, and someone that students would go to. Like I found out later on after he died, some of the students who were suicidal or who were being abused at home reached out to him and he helped them. Now, he never told me about that, and I'm his wife. So that people could confide in him, and they knew they could confide in him. So he was an extraordinary person.
And you guys took a lot of students on as, helping a lot of students yourselves too, correct?
Yes, we ended up adopting one of our students that needed someplace to live and parents to take care of her. So, yeah. And she ended up going to the Navy because Chris inspired her to be in the military. So.
Wow, that's awesome. So I want to talk about your son, Thomas, and he is in the Marine Corps now, and he did a lot worked with the Travis Manning Foundation. Could you talk about that and how I watched a couple of videos on that and how that happened?
Yeah, give me 1 second because someone's knocking at my door.
Yeah, not a problem.
Okay, they left.
No problem.
Yeah, so we started our own foundation. It's the Chris Hixon Athletic Scholarship .com, and that is to do 3 scholarships in Chris's honor at Blanche High School, South Broward High School, and Marjory Stoneman Douglas. Those are the 3 high schools Chris worked at. So it's a scholarship for scholar athletes, $2,500 scholarships And then, that's the foundation Tommy and I started. And then Tom, sorry, he's an adult now.
Right.
He's been very active with the Travis Manning Foundation, which is a foundation named after a Marine who was killed in Afghanistan. His family started this foundation, and how this worked out is Tommy's birthday's in February, and he did one of those Facebook donation things for the Travis Manning Foundation because he learned about him when he was in officer training school.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris and I were like, oh, how awesome is that? For his birthday, he's asking for, so we gave a donation. And their motto is, if not me, then who? Because Travis Manning did his second tour. He had come back from Afghanistan unscathed, and then very quickly was called back to go to Afghanistan the second time, and his family said, tell them no, you didn't even have time to often, and his answer was, if they don't send me, who will they send? So that's kind of their motto. So when we were trying to figure out what to put on Chris's headstone, I said to Tommy, that motto is a dad. I mean, it's how he lived his life, and it's also how he died. So we put it on Chris's headstone, and then the Travis Manning Foundation saw that we did that and reached out to Tommy, and there's been a really great resource for him. He's now trained as a Character Does Matter speaker, so he goes out and speaks to youth about why character matters and why giving back to the community is so important. It's something that we raised him to believe in. When he graduated high school, he had 1,400 service hours, and just kind of how we've lived our life. And it helped him as a veteran getting out of he got out of active duty, he's now in the reserve, and it gave him a sense of purpose, and it's an awesome foundation.
Well, that's great, and thank you for giving me that information. And lastly, I know you talked about your foundation a little bit about that. Now, I know there was you do races with that. So could you just give us a little bit more information about that, please?
Yeah, so Chris and Corey were training to do the Make-A-Wish 5K before in January 2018. So the trainer that Corey has said to me, let's do a 5K in honor of Chris, since that was something that he was training to do. So we did February of last year. Chris's birthday is in February. So I want to do it as part of like a celebration of his life. So we did the 5K last year. We're going to do it again this year, and we're going to do it February 15th at Hollywood Beach at 7 a.m. And you can go on at chrishixon.com and go to sign up for the run. And the proceeds go towards those 3 scholarships that I was mentioning. So we've given out 6 scholarships already. Pretty excited about that, and looking forward to expanding them and being able to do more for the students in Broward County.
How was the turnout for the first race?
With 811 runners, it was awesome.
Wow.
We're hoping to have over 1,000 this year.
Wow, that's really impressive for a first race.
Yeah.
And so last thing is, Debbi, is when is the election, and also where can people find more about you, whether it's volunteers, donations, texting other people, phone calling other people? What can they do to help you also? And just tell us your websites.
Okay, so yeah, the election is August 18th of 2020. And the website where all of that stuff is Debbi, D-E-B-B-I, Hixon, H-I-X-O-N, .wixsite, wixsite.com/Broward. So that's the website, and there's a little survey form you can do that says you want to help and how we can contact you.
Okay. And then they can donate on there also and stuff like that?
Absolutely.
All right,
great.
it's
a countywide race, 31 cities in Broward County. So, we need a lot of help manpower, but also financially, because it's a big city and you have to get your name out there, and we're looking to do some mailings and stuff. So every little bit helps.
Any of the students helping out that, had Chris as a mentor or involved with Chris in any way? Are they helping out?
Yes. And a lot of them are going to be, this will be in next year will be their first time voting, and they're very
Wow.
excited that they'll get to vote for me for the first time that they're voting. So that really makes me proud.
Well, that's awesome, Debbie. And I really appreciate the time that you spent answering all my questions. We
Oh,
went a
you're
little bit over time, but like I said, I appreciate you taking the time. And you and your family are really inspirations. And I'm not just saying this for the TV, just what I've learned about you and however long we've been on here, 30, 40 minutes. It's really inspired me. And as a person that's going into teaching within the next couple of weeks and starting, thank you for giving me hope about the profession and a lot of stuff. And I really hope that I can try to help you out, and also other people that listen to this will help you out. And everybody go to Conversations with Rob, listen to our show also on the radio, and check us out on YouTube, subscribe and like this video, pass it on, because we need more people like this in our schools. People that, somebody that's been working in the schools for 31 years and knows what goes on inside and out. So, Debbie, thanks so much for your time, and I look forward to following you up on this.
all right. Thank you again. Have a great day.
All right, thanks, Debbie. Bye now.